أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I seek refuge in Allah from Shaitan the accursed, and I begin in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. My name is Umar Abdullah. I'm the head of the Wajihatul Islami, the Islamic Front, and I'm here once more today, which is the 14th of February 2019, to speak on some very serious and sensitive issues that is of interest to all. Um, First of all, excuse me if I may seem to be sniffing sometimes. My sinus has acted up in me since yesterday, and it's a challenge when that happens to me. So just bear with me, inshallah. Once there was a lecturer delivering a lecture to some university students, and I guess the theme of this lecture was about the harmful effects of smoking and cigarettes and so on. So there's this young girl sitting at the back of the class, stood up during the lecture and asked the lecturer if that in his pocket, in his shirt pocket, is a packet of cigarettes. And obviously he was caught by surprise. And the girl told him, isn't that double standard? I mean, here is a learned professor, university lecturer, talking about the harmful effects of cigarettes and the negative effects it could have on an individual, not just the person, but the lifestyle and so on. And for obvious reasons, this man was a smoker. So she told him that that's double standard, and she's not prepared to continue listening to him. She got up and left the room. This is exactly what we see playing out before our very eyes in this country. And for quite some time, it has been staring us straight in the face, confronting us on every occasion, at every turn, and we fail to recognize it, and we fail to see it, the double standard, the corruption that is continuing to fuel the rise in crime and murders in this country. And it's just getting worse. We're not seeing an end to the violence. We saw recently where the Commissioner Gary Griffith went into two areas in Port of Spain and held two, quote unquote, supposedly gang leaders, according to the police, Bombay and Prezi. One would want to think, well, okay, he's perhaps making a step in the right direction. But is this all entirely true? When the Commissioner of Police became the Commissioner, I was one of the first persons who had met with him and sat with him, had a meeting with him, and to talk about certain things. I was also the first one who had publicly endorsed him for that post of Commissioner of Police. And by all accounts, he is the only person that is most suited for that post in the country at this point in time, who has the intelligence and the understanding, the maturity perhaps, to tackle the issue of crime. But we have to understand as well that there's a lot of constraints as regards to him being in that position and, fulfilling his roles and performing his duties. So I had to ask him one question in that meeting that we had, and what is he prepared to do, or how is he going to deal with the issue of white-collar crime in Trinidad and Tobago. And he responded by saying that he's going to use plea bargaining to somehow address that issue. I guess what he meant by that is those, individuals that will be held for pushing drugs and guns on the streets, they'll be interrogated and, sought to get some answers from them as to where they're getting the illicit drugs from, where they're getting the guns from, who's bringing in this stuff into the country. Because by all accounts, these young men, they are not capable in any way financially to sustain the delivery of drugs in this country and the delivery of guns in this country. A simple weapon that some of these guys portray over social media. Sorry about that. That was my alarm going off. One of these guns being displayed by these guys on social media sell for nothing less than $15,000 for perhaps the cheapest weapon. Where is this money coming from? What type of work does these individuals have, or where do they get their financing? It's obvious it will bring us to a point where we'll be asking some tough questions, and we will deserve the answers to those questions. So, coming back to my point, up until now, and Gary Griffith has been the commissioner for some time, and he has been doing a tremendous amount of work, plausible, and but I'm not too sure if we're achieving the objective, or if he's achieving the objective. Right enough, he's taken some very bold steps that was never taken before. The scene where he went in to beat him and held Prezi. That was something that the other commissioners have perhaps never done. Recently, I think there was they had detained him for questioning, and there was a big protest and uproar within that community. Maxi taxis, people robbing maxi taxis and inflicting harm on the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago passing through that area. And that, in my view, was an act of terrorism. However, he was released subsequently, and nothing came out of those investigations. No one was held responsible, and everybody had to repair their own vehicles. Those vehicles who were destroyed, damaged by missiles that was thrown at them in the form of stones and bottles and so on. Nothing came of that. So where are we? Where are we as a country in addressing these issues that affect the citizens of this country? Yet we see recently a video being posted, an interview that was done on Fox News, an international media company, of a young man who had left this country and went to Syria to fight. And he making certain statements and so on. Obviously, those statements, like I mentioned, does not represent the thought process of Muslims here in this country. He obviously doesn't represent the ideological stance of Muslims in this country, or the fundamental stance of Muslims in this country. When I heard the video, my immediate reaction was, this brother has to be, something is wrong with his head. Something is definitely wrong with him. Perhaps the injury he got on the battlefield probably affected his cognitive senses. So I would want to dismiss those statements coming from just one individual. I would want to dismiss those statements as being reckless and unintelligent. He obviously probably wasn't thinking in making that statement, because what he would have done was to place Trinidad in a more negative light than it was before, and new questions being asked, and new initiatives by the Ministry of National Security and the TTPS will be put into place and target Muslims again. And there's this whole question of Islamophobia and the negative effects of this type of rhetoric and so on. Now, a lot of you would probably say, well, I at one point in time, and I did say that on a national program, international program, that I used to encourage individuals to participate in trying to help our Muslim brothers and sisters overseas, and in what capacity they can do that. They should, right? In context, that is exactly what I meant. And when ISIS came on the scene and they claimed that they were establishing the caliphate, obviously a lot of Muslims would have welcomed that announcement, obviously, to do some investigation after, which is what I did. And very early, I found out that I realized that ISIS was not a legitimate group, and their objective was not in keeping with that of the Quran and the Sunnah, even though they claimed that. However, those sentiments was taken out of context, and I was labeled, being a supporter or a sympathizer, etc. Let me state emphatically clear right now that I am not a supporter of ISIS. I do not condone the actions of the ISIS group, and I am not in no way encouraging anybody to go there or to have any sort of connection with that particular organization. As a matter of fact, very early, some of the individuals who would have left and gone, I was having conversations with them to stay and not to go. I remember one such conversation was with Farid Algernon, as one of the brothers who was martyred in that fight. And I remember telling him that we have a lot of work here in Trinidad to do as regards to Islam, establishing ourselves properly, practicing our religion in the right way, engaging government, engaging the agencies, the NGOs, FBOs, CBOs in the community and so on, working alongside with them to bring about a better society and a more productive country. But they were not about listening to that argument, so they left and they went because I heard Imam Yasin Abu Bakr making a statement indicating that he don't understand what reason would these guys have to leave this country and go to Syria. Obviously, there are a number of reasons. And I don't want to get into that now. Because he did make mention the Syrians are here, they're part of that country, why is they're not leaving to go there? Well, one of the obvious reasons is that the Syrian community, they're not Muslims. And it's not their brothers and sisters that are being persecuted in these lands overseas. So, you know, there's no reason to go and help and assist anybody, or, you know, that kind of thing. So, obviously, there were a number of reasons, and I don't want to get into that now. That would be for a different conversation. So, anyways, so a whole focus was placed on this individual in this interview, because CNC3 had some, you know, both CNC3 and TV6 spoke about this issue. It was reported on the other newspapers and so on. Somehow to, you know, misdirect the attention of the populace into thinking that terrorism is a real threat to Trinidad and Tobago. And these individuals coming back home pose a real danger to the security of this country, which is totally the opposite of what it is, I know. And when we really put everything in perspective, who is really wreaking havoc here in this country and putting every single Trinidadian and Tobagonian at risk? It is the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago who are here, who are present. The common criminal, the quote unquote, the gang members. You know, according to you know, a report I saw in the newspaper this morning, the punks, that how, you know, Gary referred to them as punks. All right, these are the individuals who have our country in a state of in which it is. And it's not so much terrorism, but it is more crime related, as was the response that the police gave when they were advising the nation about the carnival plot. They said it's not terrorism, it's more of a criminal nature. So they themselves doesn't understand the terms and the real meaning of the terms. All right, they're still grappling in the dark to understand what is terrorism, what is crime, you know, what is violent extremism, and so on. And simply putting it, we have a sort of a attitude in Trinidad and Tobago, this double standard attitude that we have, to see things and allow it to happen. And then when these things become a sore in our society and it festers, you know, we try to blame one sector of the community all the time for that. And it is the poor, struggling citizens of this country. And when I mean that, obviously the criminals come from that sector. Most of the criminals come from that sector. And as the Imam Yasin Abubak rightly said, poverty breeds disbelief, leads to disbelief. And when we see people of an upright nature, they become poor and they become challenged economically, financially. It leads them into areas that it's of a criminal nature, because they need to feed their families. They need to put food on the table. They need to stand up and maintain their families and so on. But what is society as a whole, and what is the government as a whole doing to stem that and to avoid those things from happening, to avoid people from going into poverty, and to avoid individuals from reaching to that point and reaching to that stage where they're going to involve themselves or align themselves with criminal elements or criminal behavior? So we see many times, and we hear it all the time in the public domain, police involvement in most of these criminal activities and so on. Police having drug blocks, police involved in the drug trade, police involved in kidnapping and so on. Recently, one of the individuals who was held in the kidnapping of that Venezuelan woman was a police officer. I am wondering if the Commission of Police is understanding the level of corruption and how deep it is within the bowels of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And if that is not dealt with, and if those rogue officers are not taken out of the system, how difficult his job is going to be. And questions are already been asked and levied against him about his misappropriateness in terms of exacting justice and fairness. I saw comments being made that why doesn't he go and hold or arrest Berkey from Sealants? Only he could answer that question. I can't on his behalf. But he's going to get these type of criticisms, and he's going to have to deal with them, and he's going to have to answer to those questions, and prove to this country that he is going after the real culprits and the real criminals, who are the big shots in this country, riding in their big expensive vehicles and living in their high-rise apartment buildings and high-rise, palaces and so on, and wearing their jacket and ties and owning legitimate business, etc., etc. So the Commission of Police has to understand that if he does not get rid of the double standard within the police service, this spate of crime, it is going to continue, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to come home to him. And he would not have to be fearful of the criminals at that time, but he will have to be fearful of his own people within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Because if he starts knocking on those doors and going after those elites in the criminal industry in this country, a lot of police officers, high-ranking senior police officers, will be held and put behind bars. And those officers know who they are. Those officers know who they are. And if the Commissioner of Gary Griffiths wants to argue the point that he has good men around him, I'm going to ask him to think again. All right? And we have the likes of Johnny Abraham, who was in the spearheading that crime fight there in Shoguanas, a crime fighting initiative in Shoguanas. You understand? And Johnny Abraham ain't no saint. And he better not speak, because I'm going to expose him. He needs to tell the nation why it is he resigned at the time when he did. What was the reason? Who was the individual he visited in the cell? And what did that individual tell him? And if that indeed scared him to the point of resigning, all right? He needs to explain that to the nation and stop coming on talk show programs and talking about and giving his piece as regards to crime fighting here in this country. All right? The Assistant Commissioner of Police, Dulal Chan, he ain't no saint, and he knows that. He needs to answer a lot of questions as regards to his knowledge of shipment of heroin from South America to England. All right? I'm not accusing anybody. I'm just asking people to answer some questions and to come clean and let us know where or what part did you play? Did you play the role of proper policing, or did you play the role of an accomplice? Alexander, the poster boy of the well-known Beyond the Tape, the TV6 program Beyond the Tape, he needs to come clean and tell this nation whether or not he's involved or not involved. He needs to let us know what sort of a relationship he has with his cousin in Sandy Grande. I'm just basically touching the surface here, right? I'm just basically touching the surface. The assistant, the acting commissioner in Tobago, she needs to explain to this country why she was transferred from there. A lot of questions and a lot of answers needs to be given. We need to understand that we could trust the police. The people of this country needs to understand that. We need to be reassured. And words wouldn't cut it, Commissioner Gary Griffith. We applaud your efforts. And I know you mean well. And I know you're doing all in your power. And I know you're being restricted as well. Don't feel I don't know that. So, we've had recently where drugs were seen in the Maraval area. I'm not hearing anything about the outcome of those investigations. Who are the persons bringing in these drugs? We keep holding the individuals who have the drugs in their possession. I am asking, who are the individuals who are bringing those drugs in? Who are allowing it to pass? We knew about the 700 million cocaine fine on Manus Island. The individuals who was held for that were the mules. When it was asked in court, the investigating officer at the time, who were the owner of the drugs, he said that the investigation didn't take them to that point. They weren't able to discover or to find out who was the owner of that 7 million cocaine fine on Manus Island. It was found in a house. The owner of that house was never held, was never arrested, was never taken before the courts. We need to understand one of the individuals or the individuals who is held in the room, whether or not those individuals who were really guilty of that crime, or were they kidnapped and placed into that room. And these individuals are being used as scapegoat to sell to this country the idea that the police is doing their job and they're apprehending people for criminal offenses in this country. We need to know the answer to the question as to why A.S. Brighton building was burnt down during that time. And was it true that the police was instructed and the fire service was instructed to go to another location to delay them so that that building could have been burnt to the ground or burned down? Or, allegedly the evidence destroyed. These are the things that the layman on the street in Trinidad and Tobago, we're not questioning. We need to question these things. We need to start asking questions. We need to, for the truth to be delivered to us. We need these answers. We don't trust the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. The PCA has the 3 recent murders or killings of the police have engaged the attention of the PCA within recent times. Why should this be so? Why should it engage the attention of the PCA? It's because something is not right about the police report. Something is not right about the story the police is telling. Why should the police be like the police officers in this country supposed to be of impeccable character? They're supposed to have manners, and they're supposed to be mature enough to make the right choice and the right decision. And don't give me that crap about when you're in that situation, it's very difficult, it's challenging for police to make a choice or the other. They were trained to do that. So you're telling me that your training program has holes in it. Many of the times, oftentimes you see video posted on the social media, the police apprehend individuals and so on, and there's an outcry by the villagers and so on. And quite right, a lot of people ask the question, well, you know, what about what took place before? That was not recorded. But we're looking at what was recorded. And there are questions as regards to the actions of the police in relation to what was recorded. So the point is, I am not condoning any criminal behavior, any criminal action in this country. Perpetrators of crime need to be brought to justice, but the police need to do their job perfectly well, because those matters you could lose those matters in court because of your incompetence and the way you approached the matter and the way you dealt with it. And it brings a lot of issues out in the court. Those lawyers and them, they're not easy. Those lawyers will shred you to bits because they are defending their clients and they've been instructed so to do. So if you make a mistake, believe you me, the lawyer is going to pick it up and they're going to bring it in court. So why do you want to make a mistake? Why is the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service so quick in their judgment, and they want to make mistakes? They deliberately make mistakes, and they know they're making those mistakes. People are arrested and they're not informed why they are being arrested. They're not following procedure. They are not following procedure, and this is why half of the time they lose their cases in court. Commissioner Gary Griffith, you need to take a handle of this. You need to take a look at this. Police officers has to be trained properly before they're put on the streets. You're dealing with the future of this country. You're not just dealing with the future of that particular individual, but you're dealing with the future of this entire country. Because that individual has children, that individual has family, that individual has friends. And those people is going to affect the rest of the country. There are too many double standards within the police service and within government. And if the government, the TTPS, the Ministry of National Security, the Foreign Affairs Ministry, these key ministries, the Attorney General's office, take into consideration this policy of double standard and corruption, a lot of our problems in this country is going to be solved. Because you're the leaders. You're the ones who are putting policy in place. You're the one responsible for policy. I remember one occasion during the time with the Prophet Muhammad SAW, he was, a woman brought a child to him, and she told him she wants the child to stop eating sweets. So she asked Prophet Muhammad SAW to tell the child to stop eating sweets. So the Prophet SAW told her to come back at some other time, and he would address it. So he was asked the question, why did you do that? So he said, I myself love to eat sweets. So I will have to stop eating the sweets first, and then tell the child to stop eating sweets. That's the principle in Islam. Lead by example. And if it is the TTPS are not leading by example, what you expect is going to happen in society. If government ministers are not leading by example, what you expect is going to happen in society. We have a prime minister the other day challenging another minister, the opposition member, to meet him out on the pavement. Is that proper behavior for a prime minister? Is that proper behavior for a prime minister? Is that setting the right example? So when the gang leader, supposed gang leader, tells the other gang leader, come and meet me on the pavement, whose example are we following? Whose example are we following? Right? Meister recently in a video, the police briefing, indicating that there's a particular calypso, pick up something, and when that calypso starts playing, people start enacting what the soca artist is saying. So they're picking up stuff and they're moving away with it and so on. You know what Meister said in that interview, and I immediately cut him off. He said it's a nice calypso. It's a nice calypso. How could it be a nice calypso when it is encouraging people to do the wrong thing? How could it be nice? Come on, are we so dumb in this country? Are we so... Come on. How could the calypso be nice when it is encouraging people to do the wrong thing? How could a calypso or a soca song be nice when it is degrading women to the lowest of the low and singing about women as though they are not human beings? That is something for the women's group in this country to address. I can never understand it. I can never understand how my prime minister and certain other ministers in government to go on the streets carnival Monday and Tuesday and dance to these tunes that degrades women, that encourages people to do wrong rather than to do good. Total double standard. And now you're asking people like myself to obey the law, to be good citizens, to be upright. How do you think people who don't have the understanding and the knowledge and the education to behave when you all behave like that? Meister, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed. Listen to that video again. You listen to it again, Meister. This song is a nice song, but it's encouraging people to do the wrong thing. You're a police officer. Are you right in your head? Gary Griffith, the Commissioner Gary Griffith, should fire you immediately. I am telling you. Meister, I am calling for Commissioner Gary Griffith to fire Meister immediately for that comment that he made. Because you are reckless. You can just ask people, or in the heat of the moment, people act out these things. You could stop that from happening. You go into any carnival fete in this country, and when the soca artist is singing on the stage, what he's saying, the people doing in the crowd. Raise your flag and wave. Find something and wave. Everybody waving it. Women taking off the underwear and waving the two in the air. How dumb can you be as a police officer? No wonder why they're telling you went and you pick up something too. You look for that. You look for that. Police officers in this country needs to be upright citizens first and foremost. They need to set the example. You need to approach citizens with respect in order to get respect. I hear in some of these police officers cursing and using obscene language, and that's against the law. Police officers cursing and using obscene language. I see many occasions police officers using their cell phones while they're driving the vehicles. Police vehicles, their tail lights busted. You understand? Which is not in accordance with the traffic laws in this country. And they're driving. So what do you expect citizens to do? Double standard. Double standard. We go on, you know, there's a saying that, you know, a lot of times you see it on social media. Trinidad is not a real place. Believe you me, Trinidad is a real place. It is the people that are not real. It is the people that is not real. Trinidad is a real place. Geographically, you can look at Trinidad on the map. On which index can we put the people of Trinidad and Tobago? You tell me. Could we put them on the happy index? Could we put them on the sad index? Could we put them on the corruption index? Could we put them on the double standard index? Which index could we put the people of Trinidad and Tobago? We're all over the place. We are a confused people. And the government is doing a very good job at confusing us even more. Confusing us even more. The TTPS is doing a very good job in confusing us even more. In making and fueling this hate in society and this level of crime in our country. Too much of friends. The police service, the policemen, they have too much of friends in the criminal world, in the underworld. They're getting, you know, small pittance. I don't know if they're not getting enough salary. I don't know if the salaries are not enough to sustain them. That if somebody come to them with a bribe, that they're going to take it because they have financial issues. I don't know if that's the case. Commissioner Gary Griffith will have to look into that. We need, as a people, to stand up for truth and justice. We as a people need to stand up and call to account all the leaders, so-called leaders in our country, politicians, the police service, the different arms, different agencies within the government, to set the example. Let us see you all set the example. Let us see your behavior in Parliament. You address your behavior in Parliament. The Prime Minister. I remember a long time ago, I was arrested and charged for an incident that took place in the TNT Mirror newspaper offices. There was an article that was printed about me that was totally all lies. And it was really derogatory, the way the article was done and so on. It defamed me, my character. And so I went into the newspaper and just simply I was asking them to retract the story and to make an apology and so on. Subsequently, I was arrested and charged for unlawful imprisonment, etc., etc. The matter went on for an entire year. It was eventually thrown out of the court. because I mean, no, I didn't have no weapons. I didn't go there with the intention to harm anyone or to, that kind of thing. Some years after, Prime Minister Patrick Manning, may God rest his soul, went into a radio station and did exactly the same thing as a Prime Minister. Nothing was done to him as a result of that. He was never called to account for that action that he took, but he did the same thing. Double standards. Double standards. So we have to be very careful, and especially when we are seeing the government agencies using international news reports to suggest that they up their game as it relates to that particular issue, like in the case of the young man giving that interview on Fox News. All right, that is not and should not be our attention. Our attention is supposed to be those who are here and those criminals who are, who have been unleashed on the people in this country and committing these heinous crimes and lowering our position on the index, the world index of crime and murders and so on, and corruption. That is what we're supposed to be focusing on. That's our main focus. That's our main focal point. And how should we address what is happening in our country, in Trinidad and Tobago, those who are present here, those who are committing the crime? How should we address them? What sort of methods should we use? And the safest place to start is by those very agencies that are highlighting these issues, by they starting to set the right example and do the right thing, and call to account all those within the agency who are responsible and who are involved in crime and criminal activity, no matter who you are. I'm beginning to feel that some of the comments being made about Commissioner Gary Griffith, that he's a coward, may perhaps be true. I wouldn't like to think so, because he's not going after the perpetrators, the real people. I'm not hearing that anyone responsible for actually bringing in these guns and these drugs into this country being held accountable for the doing. Going back to that 700 million fine on Manos Island, the cocaine fine, there was an individual, a Spanish guy, who was held in that, and he was subsequently released. The DPP needs to tell this country, because I understand it was allegedly he was paid a sum of money to release that individual. That individual being released, he was later held in Spain and extradited back to Colombia to face drug trafficking charges. This individual was in Trinidad and Tobago, and he was in the hands of the police. He was in the hands of the police. And he was released by the Trinidad and Tobago police. Later to be held in Spain and extradited back to Colombia to face drug trafficking charges. How did we miss that? Was it true that the DPP received money to release that man? Individual Naipaul case, where the husband clearly stated in open court that he paid monies to the DPP. Nothing was done about that. Nothing was done about that. But yet we have the government running to the courts with numerous legislation, anti-terrorism bill, anti-gang legislation, etc., etc. The real purpose behind those legislation was to actually target one particular group of people in this country. And I know that for a fact. Because when the killing was taking place in Lavantil, there was a program called the Hearts and Mind program that was initiated to stem what was going on there. When we asked for a similar program in Shoguanas, the then superintendent of police there, McIntyre, who was part of the Hearts and Mind program in Port of Spain, refused to initiate a program like that in Enterprise. Look what happened after. Because why? Because the persons who was killing one another in Port of Spain, they were not Muslims. No gang legislation was taken to Parliament when that was happening. But immediately when it started happening in Enterprise with the Muslims, they run to the Parliament with the gang legislation, anti-gang legislation bill. And the intention was to hold, and this is one of the intentions, is to hold those imams for those masjids all over the country who have they have a membership, they have a masjid and so on. But some of the members probably involved in nefarious activities and so on. The imams themselves and so on. And the intent is to hold some of these imams and to charge them under the anti-gang legislation, because they are being viewed as being the leader of a gang, not a jamaat, not a masjid. And we are the Muslims are at fault here in terms of not recognizing this. And those imams, the correct terminology for more than one imam, the plural is a'imma. A lot of people don't know that, but so the a'imma needs to understand this and needs to clearly understand that they need to come full circle and become a jamaat, not to resemble a gang. We need to become a jamaat. You need to be a true imam. And you need to direct your members on the correct path by establishing the proper education programs and the proper workshops and so on within the community to engage your membership to come away from that negative lifestyle. So you need to turn your masjids or masajids into a jamaat, in the true sense of the word, not a gang, or not something resembling a gang organization. We need to do that. We need to start exemplifying the true way of the Quran and the way of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We need to start practicing what is true Islam. The way I see Muslims responding on social media and the language that they're using, obscenities, calling each other's names, etc., etc. This is not Islam. Don't for once think you'll send out a post, use obscene language in that post, and threatening language, using images to support the idea that there is a war, there's a battle, you're fighting, and think that is, and claim that you're Muslim and think that is Islam. That is not Islam. That is not Islam. You need to learn your religion. Find yourself in a masjid that teaches you your religion. There are many classes all over Trinidad and Tobago in different masajids. Stop sitting on the block, smoking weed, selling weed. A lot of you Muslims doing that. And still claiming at the end of the day to be Muslims. Your salah would not be accepted for 40 days. 40 days. When you consume alcohol and you consume these substances that gets you high. Any substance that intoxicates you, your salah would not be accepted for 40 days. But you have to pray. You have to still perform that prayer. So why would any Muslim know that their salah is not going to be accepted for 40 days, wants to go and smoke weed? Where is your sense of understanding? Where is your ability to grasp this concept of Islam and true religion, true spirituality? Where it is? Where you're smoking weed and still balling you're Muslim? I mean, I'm not saying that you're not Muslim, but you're stepping outside the fold of Islam when you do that. And eventually when you step off the rail, you would be derailed. Any train that goes off the rail ends up in, it crashes and kills everybody on board. The train don't come back on the rail. They don't come back. So if you have one foot outside of Islam, it's more likely that you're going to come out of the fold of Islam than likely that you're going to come back in. So all this is under the same category of double Islam, the double standard. All of this. Double standards. You say one thing and you're doing something else. Going to the masjid and praying. Most present in the masjid. Where you're smoking weed, selling weed, consuming alcohol, gun running, involving in gang activity, threatening, abusing people, and you call yourself Muslim. And you're calling yourself Muslim. I'm not condoning that type of behavior, and I'm not condoning that type of action, but I'm calling all to account for their behavior. I'm calling all to account for the examples that they set. Lead by example. If the police wants people in this country to obey the law and to be upright citizens, the police themselves need to do that. And if they're not doing it, Commissioner Gary Griffith, you need to get rid of them. Fire them immediately. This is your no-nonsense approach. And you're going to only have to fire one or two of them. I am guaranteeing you that. The rest of them are going to fall back in line. The rest of them going to fall back in line. Let them know that you know their stupidness. That they know, let them know that you know that what they're upon. And you're not going to tolerate it. I want you to survive in that position, Commissioner Gary Griffith. And the only way you can survive is to get rid of those rogue police officers. You're going to be killing two birds with one stone. You get rid of the rogue officers and the criminal element in the police service, and you're going to be dealing directly with solving our crime problem in this country. I guarantee you that. I am guaranteeing you that, because there are agencies within the communities who are well equipped to conduct programs and get these at-risk individuals into those programs. But there's a role that the DTPS is playing, and that role is preventing those things from happening by the actions that they take and the things that they do. They're stifling the communities. They're stifling growth. They're stifling production, and they're stifling productivity and the establishment of lawful behavior. That's what they're doing. Because the more you corner a docile animal and you poke that animal continuously, keep poking that animal, that animal is going to bite back. It's going to fight back. It's going to bite you. So this is something that is very, very serious in this country. And if it is, we do not take stock. And if those in power, those in authority do not take the necessary steps to address it, we're going to continuously see our country go down that path. That path that is leading us to destruction. We are already there. We are knocking on the door. We are knocking on that door. So I hope in my delivery, I did not do anything that was displeasing to my maker, to my creator. And I hope that those persons' names who I would have called, I'm merely asking you to deliver to us the truth, your involvement. What is the truth? Is it the allegations being made against you true, or is it false? Let us know. And bring your evidence. Show us and tell us how you're not involved, or how these allegations are wrong and erroneous. Because believe you me, I have a lot of evidence. I have a lot. I have a lot of witnesses who is willing to come forward. But again, people would say, well, okay, if I have the evidence and I have witnesses to come forward, why don't I? It's not just as easy as that. It's not as easy as that. I would always prefer to allow the one who is being accused to come forward and defend themselves. And I want that to happen. I want these individuals to come forward and defend themselves. And there are a lot more names that I can call, and there are a lot more, for instance, that the two police officers who was held with the drugs in the police vehicle, the marked police vehicle, right? We want to understand, and we need to be told who was the senior officers that gave them that instruction. The senior officers, we want their names. We want their names. You see, people not talking that. People not talking that. Commissioner Gary Griffith, you have a serious task in your hand. I'm not envying your position, but I'm here to support you, and I'm here to, to play my part. And I had already given you some information regarding a drug block in Laramie, where police marked vehicles park by that drug block, right? By that drug den, and the watchman that drug den wholly marked police vehicles, right? They're protecting that drug, that the guy who sells drugs there, and protecting that drug den. Right? I give you that information. I gave you that. I haven't heard anything happen as regards to that as yet, but I'm still waiting. Right? So there's a lot of nonsense that's taking place within the Trinidad and Tobago to the police service, and those things need to be addressed in order to address crime. Simply putting it. Simply putting it. Right? Simply putting it. Right? The criminals behave in the manner they behave because they feel they have backing from some greater entity, or from some other agency that has power and has clout. So they do what they want because they know at the end of the day, these individuals or this entity or this agency would come to their rescue. We need to let them know that nobody's going to come to their rescue, nobody's going to stand with them, and nobody's going to support them and their foolish behavior. All right? So, I'll end this video now, but before I go, like I said, whatever I've said that, that was wrong, I ask God Almighty to forgive me for that, and to, keep guiding me, keeping me on the straight path, and continue to speak the truth and to bring to light the issues, the real issues that is affecting us here in this country. Take care.